We want to make sure we cover, have enough time for everybody to speak and cover all of the points that need to be made. Welcome the Veterans and Military Committee, and we'll get started here. Today we're going to have hearing on House Bill 2213, and then we'll have 2214 afterwards. I just picked them in numerical order. So 2013, and Carly, would you explain those bills, please?
All right. Good morning, committee. Mr. Chair. House Bill 2213, as introduced, would prohibit certain conduct and improper collections of veterans benefit fees. Subsection A provides the definition for the term veterans benefit matter. Subsection B states that except as permitted under federal law, no person shall receive compensation for preparing, presenting, prosecuting, advising, consulting, or assisting any individual with regard to any veterans benefit matter before the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, the United States Department of Defense, or the Kansas Office of Veteran Services. Subsection C also prohibits the compensation for referring an individual to another person for the activities mentioned in subsection B. Subsection D provides that nothing in this bill prohibits a division of fees between attorneys that is otherwise proper under Kansas law. Subsection E states that a violation of this act shall be a violation of the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. Subsection F provides that any person who receives compensation for the activities mentioned in subsection B shall be held to the same ethical standards as an attorney under the Kansas Rules of Professional Conduct. Subsection G is a severability clause, and House Bill 2213 would take effect after its publication in the Kansas Register, and I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Carly. Are there any questions from the committee or from others that are here? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Carly. We'll first start with our oral proponents. Mr. Johnny Keller from Salina Area Veterans Assistance Group. Sir, if you wouldn't mind, make sure your mic is on and state your name and where you're from for the record, please.
My name is Johnny Keller. I'm with the Salina Area Veterans Assistance Group, and I want to thank the chair and the committee for hearing us today. We're a nonprofit. We're not even associated in a profit or nonprofit, no 501c, we're any of that. We are just a group of people who come together to assist veterans in our area. And one of the things that we have learned with our veterans is the assistance that can be given to them through the various veteran service representatives and veteran service offices that throughout our state, at the VA, and the various organizations such as the American Legion, VFW, DAV, that are all out there that are helping our veterans at no cost. And what we've done in our area is just bring that to the veterans' attention. Many of them just don't know what is available. And veteran service representatives all have skin in the game. They bring their experience in the military and what it's like to go through, unfortunately, some of the headaches that they face with the VA and compensation, educational benefits, even death benefits. And we get those guys and gals informed to go to these organizations. These organizations then act with their experience to help these veterans, and they just understand. It's like selling a car that you don't know anything about and you're trying to sell it. These folks know what's going on. The veteran service offices that are located in the state of Kansas are geographic throughout the state. They're in great areas where the veterans can get that assistance. And the state one, which is the Kansas Office of Veteran Services, actually travel to the different communities on different days of the week to help those veterans. In the Salina area, the two VSOs that work there for the state, which are separate from the VFW and the Legion and the DAV that are there, which provide assistance, that they have days of the week that they travel to 7 different counties and assist those veterans. We've seen firsthand how veterans have been helped with their claims, the appeals, the supplemental claims, family issues, education issues, death issues, uh, the compensation and pension appointments that they get out of it. And again, it's at no cost to them and their families. Since 2024, the VSOs have come to our group, which meets at the VFW in Salina, and they have helped 71 veterans since August with claims, appeals, or just going in and maybe adding a dependent. For instance, my son, who's a two-time Iraqi veteran from the U.S. Marine Corps, has 5 kids. And they have helped him every time of getting an extra child added for that benefit. They have helped him with his educational assistance. And his father-in-law passed, and we helped get them set up with a VSO. He was a World War II veteran, and that veteran got assistance. His wife got assistance, and even the burial assistance that she got, a little money that way, and she also got a headstone. All she had to do was pay for that headstone to be put up, all free of charge through the VSOs. And I'm going to share 2 stories that we have personally worked with. And in these stories, the first 2 people were homeless veterans that were in Salina. One drove in from Nevada, and she was living out of her van. And she found there were jobs in Kansas. And she came to our group, and we were talking with her, and she said, I don't know where to turn. I've got some issues, and I don't really, you could tell there were some things going on. We got her, sat down, talked with her. One of our volunteers told her about some jobs, and she applied with a company there. She interviewed that same day to get that job. And she came to our meeting with the VSO that we had set up for her. They filed claims for her. She contacted us. This was in September. She contacted us last month and thanked us and the VSOs and said, hey, not only have I got this job and I'm back on my feet, I'm not living in my van anymore. The VA has now given me 100% total and permanent compensation for my, she was blown up in Afghanistan, and for her brain injury and for her PTSD. She was at a point where she had no idea where she was going to pay for anything. And the VSOs, through the Kansas Office of Veterans Affairs, took care of her. Another individual came to us, asked about where they could get some help. We turned him over to get assistance from the VSO. He was living in a tent in Salina. He got a place now with the assistance of that organization. He's now got some compensation and pension coming to an address where he's at, and he's getting back on his feet. We have 2 guys that came into our organization that everything was fairly good in their lives, but someone told them, you know, your veteran service could count, and some of the injuries and problems that you're having, you should talk to someone about this. So we helped those guys. 2 of them are here today. Dale Wilson right here, he just came in looking for hearing aids. And if you have any idea what those cost, they're expensive. We started talking with him. We got him set down with the VSO, found out that he had a traumatic brain injury. He's the only man I know of that's been in 2 plane crashes in 3 days. And those were in the Navy. And as a result of all of that and the coaching he got from VSOs, he was at 100% total and permanent, and he has his hearing aids, of course. Ron Stelter, the gentleman back there with the hat on, he's fighting the battle of being a member of the National Guard, working as a technician and having difficulty getting his records. But the VSOs are working with him to get those records for him, and he has got some compensation. So I'm 100% total and permanent and a retiree of 21 years of military service. The VSOs have always been there to help me and my family. And the VSOs have gotten me through education. They've helped me with burial of family members that were veterans. And they are 100% in our park to help the veteran at no cost. And these folks are incredible, incredible people. We have 2 people that come to our organization, and I'll wrap up with this, that it used outside sources. We're not aware of VSOs. One of them waited, even with the PAC Act being passed, waited over a year, use an attorney to get benefits, and he died shortly afterwards. His wife had absolutely no idea what to do, not in a position to hire an attorney, so she came and spoke with us. We got her back to a VSO, and because he died as a result of Agent Orange, she's getting compensation, and she got some death benefits for him. The other individual I spoke with just this Tuesday night got a small 10% after paying for an outside source. The outside source still represents him. He was wanting to try to come to a VSO. The VSO told him, I can't help you because you're being represented by someone else. It's been 4 years now, and he's still waiting on appeals to be done, and I've never heard of such a thing. So the VSOs, in my experience, it doesn't matter which of the organizations that provide that free service to the veterans, have got the tools, they've got the skills, and they have the skin in the game to understand what veterans needs. I'll take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Jim. We will hold all questions until all the speakers have given their presentation, and that way we can make sure everybody gets to speak. And,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll go
Thank
from
you.
there. Thank you. Our next conferee, Jim Carlskent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, committee. I'm Jim Carlskent. I'm actually I represent the VFW. I'm the state legislative chairman for the VFW. Excuse me. I appreciate the time that you're giving us today to speak on House Bill 2213. The intent of 2213 is very simple. It is to prevent individuals or companies that charge fees to assist or consult a veteran when filing a benefit claim. You know, we talked, many of you that's on this committee, we talked last year about how veterans are being taken advantage of. And you know, we could give horror stories after horror stories about what's happened to veterans that are being taken care of by what I'll call claim sharks or claim predators. You know, this bill is pretty simple. It is, if you're certified by the Veterans Administration and you go through the training, work with Kansas veterans, and you don't have to be a member of a Legion, the VFW, or anyone, any organization. Just like Johnny, you know, talked about the individuals from Salina. These people needed help, but unfortunately, some people, as he used examples, have been taken care of by claim sharks and predators. We just want the veterans of Kansas to be treated fairly, and we're not going to we don't discriminate against people that want to help veterans. Go through the process of getting the VA accreditation and don't charge the fees because of then they will take advantage of veterans. Oftentimes, the veteran is, I'll use the words, sold a bill of goods, and they are offered incentives to work with these claim sharks and predators. And usually what happens is, on the average, a veteran gives about 5 months of the benefits they receive. So for example, Johnny was talking about veterans that are 100%. They're getting around $3,500, $3,600 a month. So that amounts to about $20,000 that a claim shark or claim predator would receive. This is a multi-million-dollar operation that's taken place, and it has really escalated since the passage of the PAC Act. So, you know, I'm not going to go on and take a great deal of your time today. There's other people that will follow me, but we just want transparency in working with veterans, filing their claims for disability, be certified, and, you know, It's very simple. So thank you, committee.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Next speaker, Mike Kelly from Military Officers Association of America. Sir.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson. Good morning, members of the committee. I'm with MOAA and Kansas Council thereof, and we advocate for the entire military community. And I'll just tell you that MOAA does not pay me to come to these hearings. I'm entirely volunteer. I get paid a retirement pay by the Department of Defense. And so this is part of my payback for that. I urge you to support 2213. I especially like the connection to the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. When you look at the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, which I had not read until I got involved with this bill, that veterans and family members and service members are a protected class under that bill. And so if anyone is trying to coach or assist or somehow intercept some veteran benefits, they are dealing with people who are in a protected class under an existing Kansas law. And I think 2213 reinforces that linkage. And I think it should be reinforced and not broken. I'm sure there are very complicated cases that might require an attorney. But for an initial claim, the VA policy, the federal policy is that a veteran should not have to pay to get their initial claim filed. And for subsequent claims, a VA accredited attorney can be hired, and there's a process the VA uses to make sure that those fees are reasonable. I'll tell one quick story. There's another federal law called the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. And that law helps people that were exposed to radiation that came from the atmospheric nuclear testing that took place in Nevada in the 1950s and 1962. And I lived in Arizona in 1962 with my mom and dad. My mom later came down with breast cancer. And she found out she was eligible for a claim under that. She decided to use an attorney. The attorney charged her a 4% fee, and she thought that was reasonable. So she had a $50,000 claim, and she had to pay $2,000 to the attorney that helped her fill out the paperwork. But her claim was a layup. There wasn't anything complicated about it. She had a straightforward medical diagnosis, and she had lived in a geographic area that was covered by the RECA. But she felt that was fine. So somebody wants to use an attorney and they want to pay for it, it's a free country, you can do that. But that's not the VA policy. The VA policy is veterans shouldn't have to pay anything to get their initial claim filed. So I'll take any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Kennedy. I'm a retired military, 33 years. Been a veteran service officer for over 10 years for the VFW. Work out of Wichita, Kansas at the Robert J. Dole Hospital. So I'm here to talk about Bill 2213 and why we should not have claim sharks were operating in Kansas. I have a son-in-law who is a lawyer in Hugoton, Kansas, and so I have nothing against lawyers. And I'm just happy he's not living in my basement and can support his own family. So I have nothing against lawyers. I want them to profit, but there's a place for them, and he does a great job out there. He does nothing free, not even for me. So my first question that comes to my mind is, I have to be accredited to get that little white badge. And that little white badge gives me the keys to the kingdom of the VA. I have all your access, know everything about you. I have your banking and your routing number. If I wanted to be a criminal, this would be a great job. So it's reason why we have accreditation. And if people don't want to be accredited, then there's something wrong. Why are we having this conversation? It should be a no-brainer. Okay, and Claim Shark should recruit from fellow veterans. I know, and VA employees that are retired, and you know, and not all veterans are honorable. But we're here to protect those who are honorable. So we need to make sure that our veterans are protected from veterans who decide not to be honorable. We see our veterans, as the gentleman before me pointed out, face to face, and that's the only way you can do business in this kind of deal. I mean, we could do long distance, but almost all of their business is online. They never see them. They don't know who they are, really. And they're putting their full trust into them. We see them face to face. We file their claims. We file their appeals. We go all the way to BVA. Takes years to get up to BVA. And just keep the train going, keep the date of the claim open, and hopefully for a different answer. They make promises they can't keep. And if the VA we ever found out that they could bring their veterans ahead of our veterans, we would definitely, National VFW and Senator Moran and others would hear from us. There'd be no way that they can expedite their claims. When I deal with veterans that have gone to lawyers, you know, sometimes they have started with us and then they hear about a lawyer and that promises made and they can't keep them, and then they always end back into my office. I've never, they're usually too embarrassed and feel stupid that they even fell for the line. And we have found out that there's a ways, and I'm doing the research, that we can dispute or appeal their payment. And so we will be training ourselves on how to do that, to make sure that, you know, if they, perchance that they do get a foothold in Kansas, we'll be ready for them to make sure that if at least their payment will be delayed. So there is a place for lawyers, like I said. VFW used Bergman and Moore, but they're only at BVA levels and other specialties like Camp Lejeune or something for dependents. So at BVA, they review all the denied cases and see if there's a chance they can reopen them. Being good lawyers, they only pick the ones they know they can win. They pick and choose what they'll take and what they won't take. So I'll just end with that. Hopefully you see it that we need to make sure we protect our veterans from claim sharks.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Next, we'll have, let me ask first, are there any neutral that would like to speak? Okay, we'll move on to opponents. Mr. Peter O'Rourke, National Association of Veterans' Rights. Sir, welcome to committee meeting. And
Thank you.
Kansas.
Thank you. I am Peter O'Rourke from the National Association for Veteran Rights, and I represent companies that work with veterans to help them with their disability claims. We ensure that they are ethical, transparent, and provide service to them in a timely manner, and that they take care of our veterans. But I have to address one thing really quick. I want to thank the gentleman that was up here before in Salina that informally works with veterans. The stories that he had were, as a former acting secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs under the first Trump administration, I can say that is music to my ears. Having local communities come together and take care of their veterans when I know the shortcomings that the department has and pretty much the whole infrastructure around supporting veterans, that's great to hear. So I commend that group. But I do want to point out one thing about my opposition to Bill 2213 is we just heard a lot about attorneys. And I'm not an attorney. The National Association for Veteran Rights does not allow attorneys to be members. I won't say they don't allow, they're just not a part of this work. But I do notice that this bill exempts attorneys. So I guess my question is if attorneys are the problem, we're not addressing that piece of it here. But I think as someone that's been working in the disability claim space since 2007, whether it's looking at backlogs of disability claims that have reached well over 600,000 at different times, veterans waiting for well over the backlogged time frame of 125 days to get their claims, I can tell you that is a complex process and it needs reform at the Department of Veterans Affairs. But I also think that it's confusing sometimes for folks to understand exactly how that process works. So if you allow me just a second, you've heard the word initial claims, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the initial claim that a veteran applies for, that submits to the department to get recognition of a disability that they incurred during their service. If the department then looks at the medical evidence of that initial claim and finds that it's lacking or it's not sufficient, they deny that claim. Then a veteran has a choice. They can just take that denial and walk away and deal with that service-connected disability, or they can appeal it. And at that point, they appeal it to the Board of Veterans Affairs, where they will then be pretty much forced to hire an accredited attorney by the VA to represent them to the Board of Veterans Appeals, and then they get to wait, I think as somebody mentioned, up to 4 years for adjudication of that appeal. I hate that process. I'll tell you, I hated it when I was at the department. I've hated it now because what it represents is an error. It's a problem. We didn't do the initial claim well enough, whether it was at the department or it wasn't developed fully by the veteran, either working with a VSO or working with a private company, who, however they got their claim done. But it represents that that wasn't done well. And now they have to go through a 4-year, maybe a 4-year process. Usually it's around 1.5 to 2.5 years to wait for the department to finally give them the disability compensation that they deserve. Why I started the association, why I work with private companies that do take a fee to help veterans with their initial claim. They're not attorneys. They don't work appeals. They work the initial claim. Because I believe if we can get that initial claim done right the first time, then that veteran never has to go through that process. Now, we can't control, VSOs or us or anybody else can't control the timeliness that the department adjudicates those claims. That's on them, that's their process. We all submit to the same, the veteran will submit theirs to the same portal that the VSO rep will do. And so they all have to deal with the same process. But there's more that can be done, and I don't feel that a bill that limits a veteran's freedom, their right, to basically go to the department, go to the government and say, this was what's wrong, this is how I want you to correct it. I don't see how we can have an arbitrary system that limits what their ability to apply resources to that. So I don't think this is a good bill. I don't think this protects Kansas veterans or any veterans across the country. There are great ways to do solid consumer protection, similar to the standards that we hold at the association, that we hold our members to, that we really hold every company to, because if they, whether they're not a member of our association or not, we point out, just like we're doing here, what those standards should be that protect our veterans. So I appreciate the time, and I'll take questions when it's appropriate.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being with us. We're going to quickly move on to Mr. Bill Taylor. I want to make sure we have time for questions. And conferees, we are going to be running close on time, I'm noticing. So if there's repetitive points, please pass on them. Mr. Taylor?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I'm a 23-year Army veteran. I've deployed to combat 6 times. I have 200 employees that work for me that are all veterans, spouses of veterans, and spouses of active duty. Countless deployments, sacrifices for our country. I have to say, I do not appreciate being called a claim shark. I don't appreciate being labeled as dishonorable. I'm running an ethical company that is out there trying to help and assist veterans get the benefits that they deserve. My employees are working tirelessly every day to provide the best service we can to our veterans. Solely because I choose to do that as a business does not make me dishonorable, does not make me a claim shark. Now, we share the concerns of the VFW. There are predatory actors out there. There are predatory practices. I know the companies that are doing it, and I know what those practices are. Rather than taking a sledgehammer to this problem and just doing away with the private industry, which is what this bill will do, we believe that a better approach is to look at what the predatory practices are we don't like, and let's pass consumer protection legislation against those practices, while still allowing good, reputable companies like mine and like many others in this space to continue to operate and provide choice and options to veterans. You know, I keep getting asked, why am I not accredited? The reason that we're not accredited is under current accreditation rules, I can't operate as a business. I can only help with appeals for a fee. Anything else I can't assist with. 90% of the work I do with veterans is looking for things that they should have claimed that they didn't. I can't help with that as an accredited agent under the current rules for a fee. I look at secondary conditions. You're rated for your back. I'm now getting radiculopathy in my leg. I can't help with that for a fee as an accredited agent. The only thing I can help with is helping you for something you've been denied for. We believe that if I were to get accredited, I would be doing a disservice to my veterans because I wouldn't be able to look at them holistically and help them across the breadth of what they're eligible for. I've been working for 6 years at the federal level to try and reform accreditation, to allow us to become accredited, charge a fee at any step of the process, but then put guardrails in place to define behavior and protect veterans. Things like requiring fees to be contingent on a successful outcome, no upfront non-refundable fees, requiring us to disclose to veterans in writing that there are free services available, that we are a fee-based service, so that a veteran is making that choice from a position of knowledge, requiring us to not work with veterans during their 1-year presumptive period. There's a lot of good things that we can do to provide protections for veterans while still maintaining their freedom of choice on how they want to petition their government for right of a grievance, which is a guaranteed right in the First Amendment through this process. And we believe, you know, when I look at my clients here in Kansas, 80% of my clients in Kansas are coming to me after having utilized a VSO. 80%. I don't know, I can't sit here and tell you why they're coming, but veterans are looking for another option. And we should not be denying that option, but we can still provide protections for them while maintaining that choice. And I'd be happy to take any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for your service. We'll move to Mr. Ray Colas, next conferee.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ray Colas, and I'm here on behalf of Veteran Benefits Guide to speak in opposition to House Bill 2213. Now, VBG provides veterans with a private, legal, and federally compliant service outside of the Veteran Affairs Organization, helping to ensure that veterans receive the benefits that they've earned. Now, you've heard some of the testimony from the veterans that were up here, and they were very consistent. There were attacks against the attorneys who were providing these services for exorbitant amounts. They also spoke to the appeals process. Now, the one thing I think we all agree to is that there are bad actors in the space. So we do agree with much of the testimony that they provided. What you are being misled to believe is that we also provide those services. We do not operate as attorneys. We do not represent the veteran before the VA. So therefore, we do not need to be accredited. Now, they claim that this bill provides much needed protections to help to save these veterans from predators. However, within this bill, it is absent of a disclosure. It does not require any signed consent whatsoever, and there is no fee structure. So what exactly are you trying to accomplish? The reason why you don't see those protections in place is because this bill accomplishes one thing, and it puts us out of business. And because we're out of business, these protections are not needed. Because of that reason, we cannot support House Bill 2213, and we ask for your no vote.
Thank you, Mr. Colas. At this time, are there any questions from the committee? And again, keep in mind the time limit because we have another bill to look at. So any questions from the committee? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not really sure who to address to, but the accreditation issue seems to be a sticking point for everyone. And I'm having difficulty understanding that because as a nationally accredited assessor for law enforcement and criminal justice, and now what we do for our educational process, I work with the Lutheran schools trying to get accredited. Would one of you want to address why you are so opposed to the accreditation? I'm not picking that up. Thank you.
You're not opposed to accreditation. In fact, I am working right now. There's a bill that's going to be introduced at the federal level called the PLUS Act, which is going to reform accreditation. It's being sponsored by General Jack Bergman, the highest ranking military officer to ever serve in Congress out of Michigan. That bill will expand accreditation to allow us to become accredited, charge a fee at any step of the process, but then put guardrails in place to provide protections for veterans. That doesn't exist right now. You know, back prior to 2006, no one was able to assist a veteran for a fee. In 2006, they moved the line a little bit to allow lawyers to work for appeals. We're now asking that we move that line one more space so that we can let everyone get accredited, work under the VA. But under the current system, I could not operate as a business as an accredited entity under the current rules. And that's why we're not accredited right now.
Did any of the other two want to address that?
Department of Veterans Affairs perspective, just so we understand what accreditation actually is. And it was actually pointed out very well by the other gentleman when he showed his CAC card for the VA. To be accredited by the Department of Veterans Affairs means you have access to the department's systems. You are representing the veteran on their behalf. There's actually two ways you can do an initial claim. You can do a fully developed claim. The veteran can actually submit that themselves. They don't have to have anybody representing them to the VA. Or you can go with an accredited representative who then will represent you to the VA and talk to the VA on your behalf. So those are the two pathways into doing your initial claim. So to be a representative, you have to go through the VA's process to become accredited. When you are just a veteran and want to do your initial claim, you are free to do that, and you submit a fully developed claim to the department.
Thank you, sir. I may have a couple of questions, but I'll wait to see.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was my question, only I want to know what you have to do to be accredited. What is the process? I'll ask Mr. Kennedy. How did you become accredited? And
There's a process, there's a training requirements for the VA and the VFW that you have to go to, and you have to be retrained every year and certified. And there's a background check. like I said, I have the keys to the kingdom, which means I know everything about you. And I could look you up if I want to, if I have a need to know. So yeah, there is a stringent requirements for us to become veteran service officers.
So okay, there's stringent requirements, I get that, and I want the background checks, but what else do you have to physically do to become accredited? I mean,
Training, we have to go through the training.
and the training is given by,
By the service off, VFW has their own training. KCVO has their, American Legion has their training.
so it's within your organization.
Then
Who would
they
train-
it's submitted to the VA, and the VA accepts that training and accreditates them.
Who would train someone who is an attorney who would go into business? Who could do that? Who could do that if that
I
was?
don't know who would.
Is there a process already
I
established?
think that's what he was saying, that he wanted to change so that he could become accredited and get paid to do the same job we do. That's what I understood him say.
I greatly appreciate knowing what access you have, and that concerns me at this point in our history. I want to be sure that people are fully vetted before they get keys to the kingdom. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just kind of a, well, I gotta, say I just wonder, is it difficult to, I mean, I've never submitted a BA claim, but is it difficult to find someone who could represent you or who could help you through the process? Is that a big need? Are there shortages of people who do that? And, all right.
So we'll take Kansas, for example. There are 56 registered veteran service officers here in the state of Kansas. They actually reflect 120 some odd, but there's many that are counted multiple times. So there's only 56 unique individuals here in the state of Kansas. Given the number of veterans here, that's a ratio of about 1 to 3,200. One veteran service officer for every 3,200 vets in the state. Those guys are doing great work, but they only have so much capacity. And that's much of what we see when clients are coming to us. Much of it is about having a hard time getting an appointment, having a hard time finding assistance. My experience when I got out of the Army, why I got into this business, I was at Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg, North Carolina when I retired. There was one veteran service officer on that base to serve a division, corps, and the entire Special Forces community. Good luck getting an appointment with him. That's the reality of the system.
Okay, thank you. Because I have helped out veterans at times, usually just print out a form, They say, hey, how do I do this? I'll go find the form, print it out, and give it to them. And I have, on one occasion, there's a guy who did need to see a VS veteran service officer, and it was rather difficult. I got a hold of one, and he's like, well, okay, I'll be in your area in a month. So
And that's the other thing that you really have to realize. Most of the clients we work with are not simple, easy claims. We, as a policy, don't work with veterans in their 1-year presumptive period right after they've gotten out. That's easy. They don't need my assistance. We really work, it's not just filling out a form. It's developing medical evidence. It's reviewing medical records. It's packaging things the right way. My typical claim packet is 60 to 80 pages long. Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
Hey, Representative Bloom.
The veterans in my district, if I talk to them, 9 out of 10 of them are unhappy with the VA and the hospital, and even our preacher is after me. He can't get the benefits he needs. So I think there is a place for you. But when I came in here and read this, I thought HB 2213, it's a no-brainer. What we have down prohibiting certain conduct and improper collection of veterans' fees, benefit fees. Well, if the House, a lot of the members don't hear you, and they read this, that's a terrible disadvantage to you. And I don't know what we should do about that. I mean, this shoots them down before they even get started.
Any other questions or anybody want to speak to that?
What can we do about it? And when we get to Senate Bill or House Bill 2214, it will address that very question.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just kind of wanted to go on the accreditation thing just to make sure I fully understand. The accreditation is only for appeals, and that's not what you're doing, or?
So accreditation, you can become an accredited agent. The VSOs can help at any step of the process. They just can't do it for a fee. The only place that you can charge a fee is to work on appeals. So the attorneys that are working appeals before the Veteran Court of Appeals, they can charge a fee. That fee is based on back pay, so they can charge anywhere from 20 to 33% of the back pay. So now let's start. You want to talk about where the exorbitant fees are? It's not with my company. It's with the accredited attorneys who are collecting up to 33.33% of 5, 6. We heard the numbers, 5, 6, 7 years of back pay.
So just to clarify, a private business has come in, has solved a solution, and is helping veterans.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hoskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Mike Kelly, please. In your testimony, you talk about Kansas appropriating funds to train these folks, and we just heard a statistic that it's 1 for 3,200 veterans. So my question would be, are we under appropriating to train these folks who can offer free services? And so it sounds like if we need to train more so that that ratio is smaller, that the state could invest more as opposed to having the veteran have to pay out of pocket if it's a matter of ratios and ability to get appointments and so forth. Does that make sense?
Representative Poskin, I think I understand your question. I pulled out my pocket calculator and checked the math of the previous conferee, and his math checks out. There's about 180,000 veterans in Kansas. Not all of them have a disability claim. So that ratio of 3,200 to 1, that's the ratio of all veterans, not the ratio of veterans with a claim. Veterans that have gone through the process and have a claim, there's about 47,000 in Kansas. So somewhere between 180,000 and 47,000, some of those folks are in the process, and some of them will never be in the process because they're healthy. So the 3,200 to 1 is correct at one level of analysis, but I don't know that it talks to the need for a backlog. I will agree that I've read online, I read some computer based forums for veterans, and there's quite a few comments in there about I'm having trouble finding somebody to help me with my claim. Okay, that's a real thing that's out there on the internet. Now, of course, I don't know if that's authentic posting or not, because not everything on the internet is true, but there's a lot of those. So I'm gonna stipulate that there are veterans that aren't receiving help with their initial claim right now. If we could hire more veteran service officers, that would help. And we have veteran service officers that travel around the state. And if you're in a rural area, you have to wait for them to show up. That's a problem. But then do you want to meet with somebody over the internet and give them your personal information that you never see them face to face? I kind of like to look a person in the eye before I give them my financial information or my private medical information. So there's a trade-off on all this. The money that Kansas appropriates for this pays the salary of American Legion and VFW hired workers that assist veterans. And if Kansas in its wisdom appropriated more money, then more people could be hired and presumably the backlog would drop.
Thank you.
We're going to have to move on. I'm going to close the hearing on House Bill 2213 and move to 2214. Carly, if you would go through that one for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2214, as introduced, would enact the Safeguarding American Veteran Empowerment, or SAVE Act, to limit compensation for assisting in veterans benefit matters. Subsection A provides definitions for terms used throughout the bill. Subsection B1 states that no person shall receive compensation for referring any veteran to another person for advice or assistance with such benefits matter or services rendered for a claim filed within the 1-year presumptive period of active duty release. That the subsection further provides for an exception should the veteran choose to sign a waiver that they are choosing to deny the free services available to such veteran. Subsection B2 requires that a person seeking compensation for assisting with veterans benefit matters shall memorialize specific terms of the service that specifies the amount to be paid and signed by both parties. Now I have to bring attention to a little drafting error. My apologies. B3 and B4 are the same. So when the committee chooses to work the bill, I would respectfully ask for an amendment to remove one of the redundant sections. So my apologies. So subsection B4 states that no person shall guarantee a successful outcome or that any person is certain to receive specific veterans benefits. Subsection B5 requires a specific disclosure, which is written within the language of this bill at the outset of the business relationship. Subsection B6 prohibits the use of call centers or data centers to process a veteran's personal information and prohibits the use of a veteran's personal login, username, or password. Subsection B6 also requires that any person with access to the veteran's medical or financial information shall go through a criminal history record check prior to having access to such information. Subsection C provides for the penalties that would be incurred should this act be violated, and House Bill 2214 would take effect after its publication in the statute book. And I can stand for questions.
Thank you. Carly, are there any questions for Carly on this? Thank you, Carly. Let's move right into the proponents, oral proponents, Mr. Peter O'Rourke.
Thank you. Peter O'Rourke, President of the National Association for Veteran Rights. We've spoken a lot about this. I think what you see in this bill is the culmination of about 2 years of work, folks on my team and working with others in the industry to come up with really what we feel is a very solid set of ethical and transparent standards that protect veterans, ensure that they have the rights to access services that they want to access, but also provide them the knowledge, as we've heard a lot of times where veterans just didn't know where to go. They get a upfront knowledge base of exactly what's available to them, and they can make a well-informed decision without having to be lacking in that. I did, just as a pause, and I'll finish with that, but just to answer the previous question, I'd wholeheartedly support the state of Kansas and frankly all states to invest heavily into their state departments of Veterans Affairs or their veterans commissioners. It's a solid way of doing business as a state, I believe. It attracts veterans to your state when they know that they can come and be taken care of by their elected officials and by their governors and staff. So appreciate that.
Mr. O'Rourke, thank you very much, sir. Next, Mr. Bill Taylor.
So once again, William Taylor, I'm the CEO of Veterans Guardian. We strongly support this bill, as I stated earlier. We believe in the need to protect veterans from predatory practices, and we believe that that addresses many and most of the concerns that have been raised by people about our industry. We also believe that this is really important in ensuring that our veterans know what their options are. In no way do we want to replace the VSOs. We want to become another option. Let the veteran choose. Let's make sure they know what their options are. That's what this bill does. There's enough demand for services out there that there's enough work for everyone in this space. VSOs play a vital role, the lawyers play a vital role, and we play a vital role in this space. And we believe that veterans should have that freedom of choice while still being protected from predatory practices. And this bill goes a long way to achieving that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ray Colas.
Ray Colas with Veteran Benefits Guide, here to support House Bill 2214. Now, this bill puts the real protections in place that you were hearing from the stories that you've heard. It requires a disclosure. It requires verbal and written consent. There's a requirement that also puts a fee structure in place, among other prohibitions in the bill. So when you see this, when you look at this bill and compare it to the other, there's a difference between a need and a want. We do not need to be accredited because we do not represent the veteran before the VA, nor do we provide them with legal services. However, they want for us to be accredited because if we are accredited, we must then provide our services for free. So before you vote on this bill, I want you to ask yourself, is it your intent to put us out of business, or is it your intent to put real protections to protect our veterans? Thank you.
Mr. Colas, thank you. At this time, are there any neutral conferees? Okay, let's move right to opponent conferees. Mr. Mike Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to state at the outset of my testimony, I don't believe the gentlemen sitting behind me that are supporting this bill are bad people. I think we have a common goal, which is to help veterans. I think what we're discussing is the best way to go about doing that. The model that we have in Kansas right now is we have veteran service organizations and the Kansas Office of Veteran Services and appropriated funds all to go in a not-for-profit basis to help veterans. That's the model we have in Kansas. These gentlemen would like for Kansas to separate from the federal policy, and the federal policy is, as you've heard, initial claims need to be provided for free. That the assistance the veteran gets for that, there should be no fee for an initial claim. Our organization believes the model Kansas has right now is the correct model. And that's not to disparage private businesses. I just say I think this is the correct model, is a not-for-profit model. I'm not an attorney. Don't play one on TV. I try and go talk to attorneys in a respectful way at all times. I will say that when I was in the service, I did have, as a commander, I had to deal with legal issues, and as I did contract monitoring for defense procurements. So I had contract law. And then I also worked in international negotiations. So I worked with international law attorneys quite a bit. Something we did in international law when we were working on treaties, we did an article by article analysis. So I went through 2214. And in my written testimony, you have my article by article analysis. I want to call in particular one which is in C2, 1.C2. And what the bill says there, that if there's a problem, that the Attorney General can bring the action against the alleged bad actor. So in effect, what that does is it cuts the veteran out from litigating directly against a bad actor. The attorney or the veteran that thought that the business that was helping him did a bad job or defrauded him or whatever, if he made that allegation, he would have to convince the Attorney General, and then the Attorney General would bring the action, rather than the veteran having the right to bring that litigation himself. So that is kind of an insulator to the detriment of the veteran. And I particularly found that to be egregious. Also, in C1, it talks about deceptive acts and practices. Well, when we're talking about veterans and potentially disabled veterans and their family members, I think that should be classified as an unconscionable act. And the Consumer Protection Act has deceptive acts and unconscionable acts are worse. So I think if you're doing something that defrauds a veteran or veteran's family or military service members, I think that's unconscionable. And I think that law should be that way. Last thing is B1B. And it says a veteran can choose to waive their access to free services by using the business. And in the consumer protection law, it says a consumer may not agree to forego their rights or benefits under this act. Now, I didn't take a class in statutory construction, so an attorney would have to give the best answer on this. But it just seems to me that 2214 B1B is inconsistent with Kansas Statute 50-625 on waiving of rights. Also got some other complaints in there about it doesn't address all the potential government agencies because the Coast Guard is part of the Department of Homeland Security. Thank you, sir, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Jim Carlskent, and keep in mind, we are out of time, but I want to give everybody time to speak and then a few questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I will be brief. We oppose 2214. Title 38 of United States Code 5901 states, no individual may act as an agent or attorney in preparation, presentation, or prosecution of any claim under laws administered by the Secretary unless such individuals has been recognized for such purposes by the Secretary. What these people are doing are against the law. It's just that plain and simple. There was comments about let's change the law at the federal level. Okay, let's change the law at the federal level. But we need to protect the veterans of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlskent. And I was just informed that we have till 10:30, and I was not aware of that. I'm sorry about that. I was moving things right along here. But we'll keep going. There's one other, Mr. David Kennedy, if you want to come. And that way we'll have plenty of time now to ask questions on either bill at the end of this. Sir?
I'll be brief. I think I said it the first time. I still stand by everything I said. This is about the money. This is not about veterans or the care of veterans or taking care of their claims. This is about a for-profit organization. You know, I am doubly retired, compensation, so my payment is helping veterans do their job. File their claims. I do my job. They get their claims filed. So, and if I heard there was something about someone said that a lot of veterans say they can't get through to a VSO. Well, I think Kansas Commission on Veterans Affairs has pretty much got everybody and some Nick and Crooney in Kansas somewhere. So if they can't get through to a VSO in Kansas, which is I think they ought to talk to Eric back here and tell him that their VSO is not picking up the phone. He'd be glad to hear from them because my boss picks up the phone. He gets those calls. So if there's any that, we're very well covered. So, so don't let that be an issue that our veterans can't get to a VSO.
Thank you. That is all of the opponents, but out of all fairness, Mr. Kelly, I cut you off there on time. Was there anything that you had left to say, just shortly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have volunteer groups and we have, like mine, now we don't file claims, but we certainly give advice and assistance to a veteran and point them to the KOVS or to the VFW or to the American Legion. And we think the not-for-profit model is the correct model to go with. And if the state needs to appropriate more money so that the service organizations can hire more workers, more claims advisors, then let's do that. But we think the not-for-profit model is the way to go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. And thank you all for having patience with me. First question, Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gosh, I have actually several, but the first one is for our reviser. I'd like a clarification on the bill. It's line 22 on 2014, or whatever this bill is. 22, oh, page 1. Yes, I'm not clear as to what that means.
A conferee may be better to explain an active duty release portion of this, but as I read the bill, a veteran, let me just read it for a second. So it would initially prohibit any services rendered in connection with a claim filed within the 1-year presumptive period unless that veteran signs a waiver. And I did look up KSA 5625, which has a subsection C, which allows for waivers unless a court finds it to be coerced or unconscionable. So a court would have to find that the waiver was out of bounds or unconscionable, for lack of a better term.
Mr. Taylor, did you have anything? Okay.
I have a follow-up.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For anyone working within this private industry, so it'd be the proponents, can answer this question. There's a section in the bill that talks about needing to require disclosure regarding the fees, correct? And so are you doing that now? Because I've looked at your websites. I see nothing about fees.
Mr. Taylor?
That our fee structure is clearly identified on our website, and I'd be happy to get that information.
That would be great, because I didn't see it, and I'm not a veteran, but, you know.
But we also,
Family members might not know how to navigate these websites, and so it wasn't very clear to me that there was a fee that is being charged.
we also make doubly sure before a veteran decides to become a client with us, we have a simple one-page document that has 5 bullet points. The first one is, I understand there's free services available, and that I can go find them at this link, and we provide the VA link search tool for VSOs. We tell them that they can do it on their own. Second bullet. Third bullet, we tell them they can be successful using a VSO or doing it on their own. Fourth bullet, we tell them that we're not accredited. And then the last bullet, we explain our fee structure, and the veteran has to initial next to each one of those, not buried in a 30-page contract in 4-point font at the end.
My point is that's not on your website. Like, I could not find that,
Okay.
what you just said, which is very clear, and it would make me make a decision as to where I wanted to go. I'm just saying that it's not clear now. I don't know how clear, if this bill passes, I think it needs to be way up front.
We'd be happy to include that in the bill.
Thank you. Representative Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 questions. One for the proponents. Just a bit ago, there was maybe some accusations that what you're doing is illegal. Could you elaborate on that?
I think the gentleman who is sitting next to me addressed that perfectly. He stood here before you and he recited what federal law states. And he started off by saying, for those who act as an agent or attorney. Once again, we do not provide those services. We do not act as the veteran's agent, and we do not act as the veteran's attorney. Therefore, we are not required to be accredited for the services we provide. What they want is for us to be accredited because federal law states if you are accredited and you provide the services similar to what we provide, you must do so for free. That puts us out of business. That is the objection against accreditation for the services we provide.
Thank you. And may I ask my second? Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a veteran's choice, right? Like they could do the VSOs, they can do your organization, it comes down to, it is a veteran's choice.
Not only is it a free market, not only is it a choice as you stated, it is a requirement for us to verbally inform them and for us to receive their signature confirming that we inform them that a free service exists and we point them in the right direction. What more can you ask for?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Chauncey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd just like to thank everybody in this room. I'm not a veteran myself, but I know majority of the people in this room have served, and I'm very appreciative of that. My question goes back to one of you three,
Excuse me just a second, Representative. Is your mic on? Make sure.
Yeah, it is, sorry. My question goes back to the legality of it. And you say, when you answer Ms. Steele's question, you don't, I guess I was asking for clarification at the beginning of your answer again. If you could repeat that again for me. Because the question pertains to what interest you have in this then, if it's not for the veterans or if it's not for the VA, what is your personal interest? Being that, I mean, you're getting a percentage base or a flat fee or whatever you're getting to provide the services. But on the same token, and I appreciate your service, but you guys have all fought and protect the freedom for me to sit here and make these rules and regulations. And now we're paying you for your military retirement or your military service. And yet the VA should be receiving these services, but now they're having to pay a fee to get somebody to guide them through the process, which something they should already have. And it kind of sits wrong with me that you fought and protect these freedoms, but yet now we want to charge a fee and get a percentage of somebody else's so we can go ahead and guide them through a process which they should already be entitled to.
So a lot in there.
Right.
When we think about this, we're not acting as the veteran's agent to the VA. So agency has a very specific definition. The VA in 2006, when the law was passed and the current language was passed, the VA stated in the rule in the law that to become an agent, you have to complete the power of attorney form. And that means you become their representative to the VA. We never take that step into agency. We operate as a consultant to help the veteran navigate the system on their own behalf. So the veteran is submitting the claim in their own name. We are there operating as a consultant to help them prepare, put the packet together, to help analyze any information they get from the VA, provide responses, but we never interact directly with the VA. So the current accreditation requirement is tied to agency and being an attorney. And so that's why we're able to operate the way we do. In a perfect world, my business wouldn't exist. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world where to file a claim, you have to prove service connection and you have to prove that you have a condition. That is an inherently adversarial system. Anytime that you have to provide evidence to get something approved, it is inherently adversarial. And that's where expert assistance is required to help navigate this process.
Thank you, sir. Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got a question, and it's because it talks about accreditation, and I believe so. I just need some clarity because I believe, if I remember hearing right, that Mr. Taylor mentioned something about that you all are pushing for accreditation. You're working toward that, if I remember hearing that right. But then when I hear Mr. Cullis say we don't want accreditation, so it seems like there's some conflict there. I just need to figure that out.
You've heard from both the experts here, and I'll just hear from the guy that did it. So today, the way the VA operates, you have to be accredited to represent a veteran. What we're asking the federal government to do is to expand that definition of accreditation to include those others. So we're working on that next step that was first taken in 2006 to decriminalize assisting veterans for their claims, now take the next step. And if I could, just to clarify, because I think it's kind of in between the two questions, we would love to have, VSOs today provide services for veterans across the board, GI Bill, home loans, aid and attendance. There's multiple benefit programs. Disability compensation, you hear it called the disability benefit a lot of times. I'm sorry, I don't think anybody goes and serves their country to get a disability. So we're actually talking about more like a workers' comp type of situation more than it is a benefit that you serve to go get. The government deserves to take care of our veteran, or the government is has to take care of our veterans when it comes to their disabilities. It's not a benefit type situation where we do that. So that's the specifics there.
Just the next question, and I've heard from both sides on this, that the initial claimant versus an appeals claimant, and I'm a little confused. I'm not sure. I know the VSOs, and I know some of those guys. I know where they work at. But listening to the outside sources, do you work with initial claimants? I know that first year you don't, but do you work with, or do you only do the appeal side?
We cannot do appeals because appeals are, again, that's a service that attorneys provide. And I will also want to quote this. In November 2023, the acting chairman, Board of Veteran Appeals, made a statement under oath in that appeals resulted in $45 to $50 million in attorney's fees each year. Now, that is an error. Appeals are errors. The service we provide, we have to get it right the first time or else we don't get paid. So again, we don't provide appeals. Appeals are provided by those who are accredited. So when they say they're trained and they're professionals, why is it that they're resulting in $45 to $50 million in errors? That is a problem. And again, we do not provide those services.
So I guess if someone comes to you and says, this is what the VA says I get, and you say, I can help you increase that, that's not an appeal then? That is just a resubmission? Is that the wording that would be used? And
So, yeah, we're getting mixed up in terms here. When we talk about an initial claim, anytime you submit something for the first time, it's considered an initial claim. So you get out the first time, and let's say I submit a claim for my back, my shoulder, and my neck. That's an initial claim. If I come back 5 years later and I now want to do a claim on my knee, that is considered an initial claim on that knee. So it's not just the first time that you come forward. It's the first time that you come forward on a specific medical issue.
Representative Poskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would be for the proponents, and I have two questions that are very different. So the first one is, what is the fee structure currently for your organization? And then is that pretty much the same across the industry or not the same across the industry?
Yep, great question. For our company, our fee structures, we work strictly on a contingent basis. If the veteran comes to us and they do not get an increase in their compensation, there is no fee. If the veteran does get an increase in their compensation, the fee is 5 times the monthly increase. So if a veteran comes to us at 50% making $1,000 a month, we get them to 80, their amount making roughly $1,500, our fee is 5 times that $500 difference. That is a one-time fee. We do not touch back pay. We offer 3 payment plans. They can do a lump sum with a 10% discount. They can pay it out over 5 months, or they can pay it out over 10 months. No fees, no interest on that. And we guarantee to represent the veteran at any point in the future for no additional charge if they get challenged on anything that we assisted with. That is pretty much the standard across the industry. There are issues with some companies that are charging higher multiples. We think that that's really getting a little excessive. There are also some companies that are charging upfront non-refundable fees to start the process. We also don't believe in those either. So in this bill, we basically lay out kind of what's the standard of the industry, that it has to be contingent on a successful outcome. It limits it to 5 times the increase, and it doesn't allow for upfront non-refundable fees.
you, that's so helpful. And then my second question does regard the AG section. If we're talking about giving veterans choices and you are limiting their ability to come back and say you did a bad job for me to the one attorney in the entire state, can you explain?
That's a great question. We'd have to go back and look at what the language actually means. That was not the intent behind it. The intent is that under this law, the AG can come after us, the Consumer Protection Bureau can come after us, and the veteran has an individual right of action in the courts to come after us as well. So if that needs to get adjusted to allow that to happen, we are more than comfortable with doing that. But there was never any intent to limit it to just the AG.
That also helps a lot. Thank you.
Representative Carlin.
Thank you. I was going to ask about the fee structure, and I just have one question after that answer, because you talked about 5 times the monthly benefit gain. Somebody tell me what the monthly gain is if it's an initial claim.
It's whatever gets awarded. So let's say a veteran comes to me and they have 3 ratings that has them at 50%. They've got a back rating, a shoulder rating, and a PTSD. I then help them submit 2 more claims, one for a neck and a knee. They get awarded an additional percentage for each of those individual conditions. It raises their overall rating. So now they were at 50%. Now those 2 new claims are going to bring them, let's say, to 70. They're going to get an increase in their compensation because they get paid a certain amount at 50 and another amount at 70. And so our fee then is that difference with the claims that we provided assistance with.
Does that take it back? So then you pick up fees based on the first 3 claims that are?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's tied to the increase, not the total compensation.
Don't confuse me. That's good. I got it. Thank you.
Representative Butler.
So I guess I'm confused still. And not on the other one. I just want to follow up on Representative Carlin's question. I think that, and maybe I misunderstood the question. Maybe I didn't. When I was talking about the initial claim, when someone comes in and has an initial claim, they've been out of the Army for 22 years and say, you know what, I screwed up. I need to go get it done. And they decide to come to you. And that's an initial claim that they're going to put in. So it's 5 times that initial claim. So if out of that, they get a 50% rating, so they get $1,000 a month or whatever it is. So it's 5 times that. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that okay? Okay, got it. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, so I come down to 2213, 2214. What is the difference in taking out the bad eggs, the ones that are the predators? What's the difference between these 2 bills? I don't think anybody disagrees on that we want to get rid of those. I haven't been able to figure that out. What's the difference?
2213 prohibits our services for a fee altogether. 2214 puts restrictions in place that we have been stating the bad actors are practicing, while also allowing us to continue to provide a service to veterans that is an option for them, although paid for.
So follow up then, with modifications or amendments, could we do that with 2213?
Would then look like 2214. Because we use 2213 to create 2214.
So there is some wiggle room here is what I'm hearing.
As long as we're not prohibited for providing our services for a fee, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested in magnitude. The veteran has an initial claim filed and it's adjudicated, et cetera, whatever, and they get a certain percentage disability. Later on, comes back in and wants to have a review and possibly an increase in the compensation. How many, I guess proportionately, what percent do the VSOs handle on something like that? And what percent comes to your organizations?
Difficult question to answer. We're really both seeing probably equal percentages. You know, because veterans get to choose. They get to choose. I can use the free service, I can do it on my own, or I can hire a private company to help me. And the veteran is making that choice. And that's really the answer to your question, is it's the veteran's choice. Nothing's dictating who has to be used. We're letting the veteran make that choice.
Follow up?
Okay, one last follow-up, and then we're going to close down.
Okay. Okay. I understand that answer, but what about success rate? I'm curious as to see, I'm talking about the veteran here. They're interested in success, and whether they go through the VSO or they go through your organization, I'd like to hear what kind of a success rate you have in satisfying their claims.
Great question. I can't speak to the VSO's success rate. I can only speak to ours. Our success rate is a little over 90%. 90% of veterans that come and work with us at some point see an increase in their compensation. My average veteran is getting about $1,000 more a month in benefits after having worked with us. The 10% that we are not able to successfully assist, we do everything we can to help refer them to an attorney to work on any appeal. I do not have any kickbacks or financial relationship. We just believe that once I've taken them as far as they can, we want to ensure that they get handed off to someone who can assist them.
Could I get the documentation on your percentage
Yes.
rate of success, et cetera? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. We need to close the hearing on House Bill 2214. One last announcement. The hearing today on these two bills, this is our plan. Plans can always change, but we are looking at hearing House bill that the Kansas Office of Veteran Services has turned in. We should be ready by next Tuesday, the 11th. Also, Representative Butler's the bill 2256, and then there is another small, real quick bill that we need to look at. We're looking at those three on Tuesday, the 11th. Now, that's Armed Forces Recognition Day. And so I'm going to try to squeeze that in because we're running out of time at the end. Then we're looking at doing a final action on all 5 of these bills on the 13th of February. 13th of February. Any questions? Debbie? Yes. Meeting adjourned.